He's parked down there near Alf Barbagello sand trap. It's not buried it in there, so he's had problems.
This battle here, there's Greg Hansford in the foreground. Behind him, Jim Richards, Tony Longhurst, JPS BMW drivers. And Hansford has come up a long way in this field. It's been a good drive from him so far. These new Ford Sierras are really starting to work now. They're being developed just a little more. The boards go out from the JPS team, and Hansford qualified 9th on the grid, 62.72. Had problems in the first session yesterday. They started the car up to go out. They noticed oil dripping out from underneath and had a split in the sump. The car had to be worked on, obviously. They re-welded it. Greg went out and did only one 30-minute session of practice. Hardly got any time in the car on Thursday or Friday, and is now probably just starting to feel a little more comfortable in the car and working himself up much, much closer to the back of Larry Perkins in the NZ Fluid Connectors Commodore.
Hansford, of course, has thrown out the plans of the JPS BMW team. Jim Richards, series leader going into today's race. But he's sitting well back at this stage. And in fact, as Neil has mentioned, Hansford is definitely the mover in the field. Look at him just closing here on Larry Perkins. Comes straight up on the tail of Perkins, pulls out of the draft, down on the inside. Perkins really hasn't given anyone a corner easy today. And he certainly hasn't given Greg one there either.
Gap first to second, incidentally, Mike, is now 3.48 seconds. That's Seaton back to Johnson. So it continues to close. Larry Perkins and Greg Hansford continuing their great dives. Greg Hansford, one of Australia's leading motorcycle riders before he became a touring car man. All the details here with the compliments of Nissan know-how. He was second in the World 250 Championship twice, second in the 350 twice, fourth in the Australian Endurance Championship in '84 with Alan Moffat, and third in the James Hardy 1000 that same year. Greg Hansford, car 18. The details with the compliments of Nissan.
Over the top of the hill, heading down to Park Royal Corner, and here comes Greg Hansford down on the inside of Larry Perkins. He's making Greg do it the hard way today. Larry's a tough campaigner. Actually the fastest of the Commodore drivers going into today's race, qualifying yesterday. But just look how that little Sierra just picks up the Commodore over the top of the hill. Now he's got the lie right for the turn. He's thinking about it now. He's going for, oh, it's all over the place.
Brave one, Greg, but how slow will he be out of the corner? Larry should be able to go through on the inside. Now, if the torque of the V8 will work for him, he's got the inside running for the next one. Greg, head down, tail up, but he's on the wrong side of the road. Hard work ends up with nothing.
And actually, Greg was running away from the BMWs a couple of laps earlier. Larry's now brought them up along with Greg. He's not letting Greg do it easy.
Well, he's having his attention diverted by a white Commodore, and the gap between Dick Johnson in second and Alan Grice in third is now 1.5 seconds.
Greg was very keen to finish this race, was planning on playing it conservatively. It doesn't really look like he's doing just that.
A ninth out of the first round for him, a sixth at Simmons Plains, and then unfortunately that didn't finish result up in Queensland a couple of weeks back at Lakeside. We'll see whether there's a carbon copy performance now of the previous lap. Hansford, this car very quick coming out of these corners, a lot of torque. Larry very wisely covers his ground moves to the inside. Hansford now again having to go the long way round if he can do it. Side by side with the NZ car. There's Julie Hansford. Come on, Greg, she said. Don't worry about it. You're not going to get through on the outside.
He'll try and pull down the inside of Perkins, but Perkins was too sharp and too smart and too fast coming off the last turn. There, Greg pokes the nose down as Larry goes in pretty deep. And Jimmy Richards and Tony Longhurst join on the tail of the Sierra now. They're going to make life unbearable for Larry Perkins, who locks up a brake as he points up through the S's there to the top of Motorcraft Hill. They've had a great race going for the last 10 laps. Perkins, who looked so sharp in the opening few circuits, will now be protecting tyres.
These two cars on screen at the moment are running Dunlop radial tyres, and the two behind are on Pirellis. First car's about 1,325 kilograms. The next one's just a little over 1,000, and the two cars behind are about 960. So a curious mixture here of weights and horsepowers and tyre compounds. It's surprising to transmitting to very close on the track.
While our cameras are not showing the leaders, I can tell you the gap between first place Glenn Seaton and second place Dick Johnson is 2.8 seconds.
Well, we're keeping a look on that for you, but in the meantime, this is where the scrap is, because Perkins really holds the key to this race for the JPS BMW team.
And just behind this bunch of drivers, we have Peter Brock in the number 6 Holden dealer team entry.
Yes, we'll catch up with Brocky. He's really running a race by himself and a little off the pace here in Western Australia. But we'll catch up with him a little later on in the event. He hasn't been able to capitalise on Larry holding the field up. That's being a little unfair on Larry. I guess Larry's running as hard as he possibly can. He's giving nothing away to Greg Hansford. He's making the youngster work hard.
Rocky's back in 8th position.
Larry's a very cunning driver, and I would imagine he would be attempting to conserve his tyres and brakes and at the same time make life very difficult for those behind him.
Another run on the inside for Greg Hansford. 2.9 seconds between leader Glenn Seaton and second place Dick Johnson. Alan Grice still in 3rd position, putting a lap on Tim Slargo. George Fury some laps down, car number 30, having broken an axle on the start line. And then this great scrap here for the minor placings, led by Larry Perkins in the NZ White Commodore, owned by Colin Giltrap of New Zealand. VK model Commodore, and Larry hoping to run one of the newer VL models after the Shell Ultra Australian Touring Car Championship for the longer distance races.
Once again, they head over the top of the hill down to the right-hander. Perkins, Hansford, Richards and Tony Longhurst.
Check that gap again from 1st to 2nd just to keep an eye on it. And Dick Johnson's now 3.7 seconds behind the leader. Greg Hansford having a look on the inside again. He is braking so hard on that car at the moment.
Race leader in round 4 of the Touring Car Championship is this youngster, Glenn Seaton, car number 15 for the Peter Jackson Nissan team. Coming up behind Ian Love in Dickie Johnson's old Mustang. Ian enjoying himself over here in the West, successful businessman. And as they come out of the right-hander at Park Royal, let's check the Castrol race splits. Glenn Seaton, 3.5 seconds clear of Dick Johnson, and a further 3.20 seconds back to Alan Grice and the Bob Jane T-Mart's Commodore. So everything running very smoothly for Glenn Seaton in 15. He comes onto the start-finishing straight, and you'll be able to see the gap as they reach the halfway point in this 4th round of the Touring Car title. Here's Dickie Johnson coming up on the inside of Ian Love. Takes Love nicely there in the Shell Ultra High Cosworth Ford Sierra. So he has plenty of time still up his sleeve to edge back the gap that obviously Seaton has established in the first half of the race.
And the order at the halfway mark: Seaton, Johnson, Grice, Perkins, Hansford, Richards, Longhurst, and 8th place Bond.
One of the interesting things about these Ford Sierras is the very high exhaust gas temperatures that they can run and just how hot these turbochargers can be. In fact, yesterday I noticed when the Alfa Romeo of Colin Bonds came in, the actual turbo housing was bright red. But you're talking about something like 910 degrees centigrade exhaust gas temperature on this car here of Greg Hansford's or Dick Johnson's car number 17. Johnson on the pit straight. Check the gap again between himself, and he is still 2.5 seconds behind Glenn Seaton, and Alan Grice is 3rd in the Bob Jane T-Mart's Commodore. We'll take a break, be back in just a moment.
Australian Touring Car Championship. Peter Brock on the racetrack, running 8th at the moment in car number 6. Brocky hasn't had the happiest of weekends. His transporter broke down on the way over here, and then they had a support vehicle that his crew managed to put on its side on the way to the racetrack yesterday for practice. He has felt the pinch, so to speak. And there's Bev Brock in the mobile Holden dealer team pits, keeping score for her hubby as he powers on, still running in 8th and not making any impression at this stage on the leaders.
He's got a couple of VL Commodores in the workshop which he hopes to have ready for the end of the Touring Car Championship, one of which is almost completed. That's why he's only got half the crew here this weekend, and in a couple of weeks' time we'll announce some additional associate sponsorship arrangements with City radio station Triple M FM and Melbourne's Eon FM.
So Brocky continues in 8th spot. Car number 6, Colin Bond, is running 9th. But the man leading the race, obviously, is Nissan's Glenn Seaton. And we take our second race cam unit, riding aboard with Glenn Seaton to show you a lap around Wanneroo Park Raceway. Keeping in mind he's heading downhill now to the run at Park Royal, which is the right-hander. Now heading up Motorcraft Hill.
Into top gear across the top of Motorcraft and a run in 5th all the way down to this right-hander at Yokohama. Steady the car under brakes, nice and gentle on the gear shift. You notice that he uses every inch of the available road. Very, very smooth driver, Glenn Seaton. Completes his 32nd lap out of 55. The car just a little taily that time. You notice him working very hard to correct. And he would be probably around about half to 3/4 a lap ahead of Colin Bond in car number 75, the Caltex Alpha. 9th position on the road. Peter McKay, what sort of a weekend has Bondy had? It's been a nightmare for him, hasn't it?
Well, he arrived here full of optimism after a lot of big changes to the motor car since Lakeside. He's a bit of a whip cracker, old Bondy. He's got the crew to put in a stiffer all-steel roll case since Lakeside. They've switched the steering from left-hand drive to right-hand drive, and they've redesigned the exhaust system, which gives the car an extra 27 horsepower. So he's arrived here full of optimism, and then, of course, all the dramas started.
And the dramas, yesterday he broke the nose off a camshaft in practice, and that put pay to his second session. They towed the car back, changed engines overnight, which they plan to do anyway, and use a new fresh race engine. Went out this morning in the warm-up and managed to blow a piston. So in the period of time between the warm-up and then the warm-up laps again and the race for this afternoon's 55 lapper, they've dropped another engine in and cobbled together bits and pieces of the two to make this combination, and poor old Bondy's out mobile once more. But the good news for the Caltex Alpha team is that this car is really getting down on the pace. They qualified very well.
Here comes Gracie into the pits now. And it looks like he's gone for a lightning pit stop for tyres. We've got the race cam aboard showing you Les Small.
Wayne Eckersley, ex-Williams Formula 1 chief mechanic. Gracie at the wheel of car 2, Bob Jane T-Mart's entry. 17-inch Yokohama cross-ply tyres on it. Les at the front of the car. They drop the air jack off it now, and away it goes in a time of about 22 seconds. That's a pretty good stop, the sort of thing you'd expect at Bathurst.
An excellent stop for Gracie. Keeping in mind the tyres on Larry Perkins' car obviously would be feeling a bit second-hand at this stage. He, of course, has been able to keep the Sierra at bay as well. Seaton goes across the line again, still leading our race. Sticky Johnson in second spot in the Shell Ultra High Cosworth Ford Sierra.
The problem with that stop of Gracie's is it drops him from 3rd to 10th position on the road. That's how long it takes.
And I wonder whether it was a planned stop or whether he just ran into tyre.
They seem to be pretty well organised, which suggests that they had it in mind. That's the leader, Glenn Seaton, car 15. Driving away comfortably from the field at the moment. Seems to have things under control. There's no fuss or bother down in the Peter Jackson cab. Dick Johnson, the gap between he and the leader just continues to seesaw a little bit. And it's going to be a game of cat and mouse to the end to see whether or not either of these two cars knock their tyres around, or their drivers end up tired, or they wear brakes. That's the gap. Johnson just coming across the top of Motorcraft now. 5.1 seconds. And this will give you some idea of the gap then back to 3rd place as the drivers come up towards the Motorcraft hill, and the new 3rd place driver will be Larry Perkins in car number 11, and he of course is battling with Greg Hansford. There they go.
It surprises me that he's been able to shake off Hansford. Hansford was very hot, picked Perkins up some laps back, gave him a tough time. Larry responded, and Greg has been sitting back probably second or so behind him. So Larry Perkins continues for the NZ Connectors Commodore.
And George Fury comes to the pits for the second time. The last few laps that he's been going by, the car's been making a dreadful misfiring sound. It's not a good day for car 30. The man that won this race here last year, pole position today, travelled about 10 feet and the axle went to lunch.
set the pace all this week too, did George Fury, and very, very confident of his chances. He thought he finally had the wood on the BMs.
Not only that, at the last meeting, he burnt his Akubra when the fire went off in the cabin. So he's had a rough couple of trots.
Yes, I guess the man everyone thought was a low-down messiah for the Australian touring car title this year, George Fury. Things aren't going so well for him. Graham Hurley of Western Australia.
He's back in 11th position in the car built and prepared by Les Small of the Roadways team. And the good news for the Shield seats entry is that Graham intends to complete the rest of the Shell Ultra Australian Touring Car Championship. He's been in racing a long time, 33 years of age, a local of course, racing for 12 years. First in the Wanneroo 300 street class, and also took out the big event in 1985. Those details with the compliments of